Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show, the show where we feature tech companies across Asia talking about their solutions and how they make a difference in their customers' lives. Now, today we feature SAP, a market leader in enterprise application software, providing companies and industries across diverse sectors. Now, here to tell us more is Verena Siow, the President and Managing Director, SAP Southeast Asia. Verena, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for inviting me to attend your show.
Now, it's great to have you on the show, Verena, but let's start by you giving us some insights into SAP and what it does in the region, because most people know you as the legacy ERP solutions provider.
Yeah, Brian. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share. So while SAP, like you said, may be known as a legacy ERP provider for a long time, our mission since we've been founded is to help companies of all sizes, big and small, to run better and to improve people's lives. And in Southeast Asia, we are committed to the long-term success of ASEAN. And ultimately what we do, despite of whether it's ERP or human HR solutions or customer experience, is really to empower businesses to become intelligent enterprises and thrive despite the circumstances, right? These days, last year we talked about the new normal. How are we going to do, right? Remember doing a lot of events and talking to customers and media about the new normal last year when we got hit with the pandemic. But it's been almost 2 years now. And now there's a term about, well, it's never going to be normal as we know, right? So how do we not just survive, but how do we thrive in the constant changing environment that we have today and will continue indefinitely, right? It's the never normal, something I learned recently. Never normal. And SAP is here to help by really looking at what are the business goals and priorities that companies want to achieve in the longer term and helping them to reach those goals by each individual transformation plans for those companies. And each company has a different journey. Regardless of size, they all have a different view, different perspective. And we have the required expertise across the industries that we are in for many years. Next year will be our 50 years anniversary, and to enable businesses to grow and scale and innovate for a sustainable digital future. I think what we've seen over the last 18 months or so is that while before that, of course, digital transformation has been a buzzword for a long time, right? Brian, you know this, you have been around for some time.
Yes.
But for some organizations, it had remained, a buzzword, right? Yeah. But because of the circumstances we are in, everybody is compelled to transform and to really embrace digital, because that's the only way we can survive and drive our business these days. I mean, look at us. We are doing all meetings. We're doing the session all remotely. We are even working with our implementation partners to deliver projects remotely, and we have more go lives than ever for SAP customers in the last 18 months.
I want to ask you something, and that's very interesting that you have more go lives in the last 18 months. So I want to take us back a little bit in terms of 18 months ago, lockdown for many countries in March and April. Now, you used to, in 2017 and 2018, look after the large conglomerates business for SAP. A lot of boardrooms and CEOs were in panic at that time. Tell us how then SAP worked with them to kind of chart out their digital transformation. Because yes, large conglomerates invested lots of money across the region. They have the money, they've invested in enterprise grade solutions like yours. But then what happened? How did they then embrace transformation?
Yeah, so Brian, absolutely right. Last year, as you may know, I was based in Thailand as the country MD for Thailand and the emerging markets around it for the last almost 3 years. So I was actually in Thailand and in Bangkok when the lockdown came in, and Bangkok was in lockdown last year for virtually 5 months, right? So I think initially we see a lot of our large customers, especially the family conglomerates, like everybody else, was in a panic. Even governments were in a panic, wondering what to do, right? But I think eventually everyone saw that there is a way that we can work towards and get out of this panic period. I think what we saw was that from March until June, there was a certain level of anxiety and panic. It's the fear of the unknown, right?
Yes.
And
that's
a lot
the biggest thing. The fear of the unknown.
Absolutely. And of course, as you know, many of the conglomerates would have some amount of business in manufacturing. Factories have to close down. What do we do? But as we get into the second half of the year, we see that many companies are coming to terms with it and say, all right, what do we do? And it's most importantly is to work with them very closely and see, all right, let's focus on the small wins, what we can do. Absolutely, you must think about how, firstly, have visibility, have real-time visibility into the business, in the data, and also their cash position. That's really, really important. And that's where SAP comes into play, because we are all about giving real-time analysis, real-time visibility into your end-to-end business operations. So there's a lot of focus around that, and thinking about how we get more visibility in our operations. How do we really become more agile? So there was a big focus on how do we get more agile, more nimble. And we saw a lot of projects that are in mid of last year, like shorter term projects around really that whole intelligent processes around IRPA, for example, intelligent robotic processes, and automation, because as you get into this remote working environment, you need more automation. You need to have a true digital platform to enable the business to continue operating despite the external circumstances. So we saw, and it's really working very closely and to define, while having a long-term plan, but really, what are the short-term themes? What are the quick wins we could have in this time period?
And which industries do you think that really sort of reinvented themselves or really had to turn themselves inside out to take advantage of the opportunities? Because one of the things that was one of the industries that have been severely impacted was healthcare in a positive manner, and then negatively in some ways retail and the F&B sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the ones that you pointed up so accurately, Brian, are those, especially in the B2C space, right? Dealing with the end consumer. What we see is really interesting is that even though we have this pandemic, which we never faced before in most of our lives, based on a most recent report by Bain, Google, and Temasek, as more and more consumers and businesses come online, and there were a huge number, really a surge last year that I think you know very well as well. The size of the digital economy in Southeast Asia could be as large as $300 billion USD, which is tremendous. And that has really accelerated over the last 18 months. So retailers and healthcare also had to pivot. The good thing is many of them already were thinking about a digital strategy, have some side of an online presence, but it's really also dealing with the logistics, the back end, and also providing that real-time insights into their operations that help them. Now, the other area that we see a great shift is that there is more and more focus about employees' well-being, mental health, and how we continue to engage our employees. Because end of the day, we are all in the people business, and the employees are the one who are serving our customers in the front line, right? So we see a huge focus on that. And in retail, we saw that shift as well. So for example, we have one of our retail customers in Indonesia called The Body Shop, a global retail chain in the cosmetics and beauty business. And they recognize that people is indeed its greatest asset, right? And they really wanted to ensure that they need to transform HR and provide constant updates on latest industry trends to allow employees to be enabled and empowered to recommend the best beauty and style solutions to the end consumers. So they have adopted our HR platform, SAP SuccessFactors, or what we call now the human experience management solutions, because it's really about not just managing capital and what was previously known, but really about managing the whole experience for employees. And in order to keep the workforce connected, remotely as well. And they have in fact saw over time a 30% increase in employee productivity. And also in these days, the upside is that they have reduced its carbon footprint by minimizing domestic travel, less travel, if you like.
Because less travel. Verena, one of the things that also then perhaps you could share is, obviously some of your large customers saw opportunities. After that initial panic, they started some new projects in the middle of last year. And then some were not only cost-cutting and efficiency projects, but they were also then revenue and new market generation projects. Could you perhaps share with us some key success stories?
For sure. And as I think beyond cost-cutting, you mentioned, there was a lot of focus, and more than before, on innovation, because innovation is the key to get us to flip the business, right? How do we innovate further? One of the great examples, and referring back to one of the industries you mentioned, healthcare, Zulik Pharma, one of the leading healthcare services group in Asia, based in Philippines, and it's making healthcare even more accessible and in these days to the region with SAP Intelligent Robotic Process Automation Solutions, IRPA for short, that I mentioned earlier. So using SAP IRPA or Intelligent RPA, we have helped Zulik Pharma create the code they need to process orders automatically, and automate ordering means that they could now meet the growing and quickly shifting needs of their consumers without delay. So that kind of real-time response was met by using Intelligent RPA. So now they could clear an entire backlog of more than 10,000 IT-related cases in case of auditing, and a task that previously would require 3 full-time employees, and they freed 20 of the employees from this mundane task of opening and closing off processed email orders by using Intelligent RPA. So this is one of the great examples of how one of our customers in healthcare have pivoted and leveraged on on innovation and drive really more intelligence in their processes to drive a better business outcome for their consumers and better experience also for the consumers.
So Verena, you're preaching to the converted, because I can tell you that I worked for the Zulik Group for 4.5 years in the 90s.
Amazing.
And I know how difficult order processing is and how labor intensive it is. So that's why I was smiling when you were telling me this, because I said, wow, technology really has changed a lot of things. And you minimize. One of the things you didn't mention is the errors involved when you're doing manual processing versus automation, so that you cut out a lot of errors and returns. So it's a very big saving.
It's a bit saving, and also, like you say, there's greater accuracy, better customer experience in the end, right? So that's, and it was a project that was done in very quickly, and in fact they won an award for this, and maybe more than one award for this in the last 12 months or so.
Now,
so we're very proud to partner with them on this.
Fantastic. Now I want to ask you this. So companies like that have now embraced this digital transformation. They set, as you said, initial priorities. Many of your large conglomerates set initial priorities on quick wins to achieve outcomes. How about smaller companies? You have a solution called SAP Business One. have you seen an uptake in that? How have you helped smaller companies? Because that's a very different market altogether.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Brian, great question. In fact, our SME business, right? You see whether is it business one or business by design, have absolutely accelerated in the last 12 months. Huge demand from many of these mid-sized companies who really are compelled to go digital, and before, you know, they hesitate because, well, do I need this? Is it the right time? But now it's like they're just moving forward with it. So the pickup and the adoption of from the smaller companies, the mid-sized companies, has really taken off in the last 12 months. In Singapore, we have some great examples. Also in retail, like Love Benito is a customer, very proud. Also, they're also a customer of theirs, and many more such stories, like Apex Retail as well, and many more. So we see that huge, compelling need from the smaller businesses to really move and embrace a digital platform. And with that, we have also really launched in a big way our cloud, our latest cloud ERP platform. We term it Rise with SAP.
And tell us a little bit about that. Is that a hybrid cloud? Is it a public cloud, private cloud? You know, what is that all about?
I think end of it doesn't matter which cloud is cloud. It can be on public cloud, it can be on private cloud. We partner with the hyperscalers to provide as the infrastructure, but we provide end-to-end, and it's all really about driving that business transformation, but how we help them to optimize their business processes in order to meet their needs, not only for now, but really for the future of the business that they drive. So really make sure that they know if there's another something else happen down the road, 3 years down the road, they will be ready, right? So the never normal circumstances that I talked about earlier. And I think the interesting shift I've seen in the last 6 months is that more customers than ever come to us and talk about not about designing a solution or a system for the business now, but really for the future. And they, you know, about what does the business look like in 5 years down the road. And they are thinking not just about like tweaking or modifying, but really getting into new business models, getting into new business areas. We need to divest in some areas and we need to invest in new areas.
So Verena, is this trend shaping the industry coming from large conglomerates or also individual companies or in small businesses?
It is coming from the larger enterprises. I wouldn't say conglomerates because some of them are not conglomerates as in they have diverse industries. But from the, I think, bigger companies, we see that focus and we see that shift into, right, these are our traditional business, but should we focus and invest in them further, or should we pivot to new business models, look at new areas? And that's why I think if you see quite a fair bit of restructuring in the market across Southeast Asia, which I think is healthy. Every one of us needs to think about how we transform and build a sustainable business. We can't take for granted these days that because we are a big company today, you know, generating X amount of revenues with so many employees, that we would be the same 5-10 years down the road. I think that concept of how we must constantly transform and reinvent our businesses in order to run sustainable business and to survive in the longer term and thrive in the longer term is more real than ever.
Now, Verena, I want to ask you, because of your regional perspective, one of the things that would be very interesting insights from you and from SAP is really which countries really have started to take advantage of this disruption to basically set themselves up for the future. Some are early adopters. You would think that Singapore would be ahead of the curve. But besides Singapore, which are the other countries in the region that you've seen digital transformation accelerate?
Brian, it's a great question. And I think the good news, the positive news is that I see it all across ASEAN. So Singapore is of course at the forefront of it. And Singapore have been thinking about embracing going to the cloud because it will enable them to innovate faster, to be more agile for a while already. However, we see that across it, whether it's Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, we see that across the board, right? Like you mentioned, some of the more traditional enterprises. I mean, if you go and talk to them about cloud 5 years ago, they'll be like, I want to own it, right? I need to buy my hardware. Yeah. I need to
see it in front of me.
Absolutely, right? Software, okay, that's fine. I buy the license, I own it, right? I own it forever, and you install it on the hardware, right, for me to use, right? That mindset is gone. It's pretty much they all understand that it's about the business outcome and the value that the offering will bring to them, and it needs to be agile, it needs to be innovative, it needs to enable them to be set up as a foundation for future innovation, and also they want the ability to make changes, as you know, and to also adopt to any changes in the business they see, right? So absolutely across the board, we see that everyone is talking about how we really need to innovate, how we need to embrace and pivot fully to the digital. Of course, you talk about, and we see this across Southeast Asia, right? Sometimes the smaller companies, even though we see this huge demand from them, they are a bit more challenged because sometimes they have more difficulty adapting to a rapidly changing marketplace versus,
because they may not have the human capital as well to make that leap. Either the founder, the business owner doesn't have the know-how, or he may have it, but his people may not be ready. And I think that's the biggest challenge in terms of technology adoption. It's the change management part of it.
Absolutely, and we did a study with Oxford Economics early on this year that showed that in Southeast Asia there is increasing momentum about growth, about customer experience, right, to drive the business. But sometimes the SMEs, right, the smaller business, which are also quite often family owned, they find it challenging to keep up with the pace of uncertainty in the market. And so we need to work with them very closely to give them assurance and make it easy for them, personalize it to their journey so that they see that they can drive it, they can drive that change and get a solution that will support their business growth. And we just need to work very closely with them on that, right? So it's working well with that. And everyone is just looking for getting visibility into the business operations. And you will hear the word, I think, Brian, this is also very familiar to you, the importance of data, right? It's always been there, but more than ever, data is what gives insight into how to manage the business.
And to use the cliche, data is the new oil.
yeah, absolutely. But it's so true, right? It's the new oil, it's the new gold, whatever way young call it. But absolutely, data is the absolutely requirement, and also the integrity of the data is something that many companies, many organizations struggle with. Absolutely. And they're absolutely looking for ways on how to improve that data integrity.
Now, Verena, for you to be a successful tech woman leader, I took a look at your background, and you have a very interesting background, including studying in NUS in arts and social science for a while, and then going off to Budapest to study. Tell us about your career until today, where you're basically the president and managing director of SAP Southeast Asia.
Yeah, Brian, you've done a bit of research, I see. I guess LinkedIn, you can find anything.
LinkedIn helps, and also all the cross-referencing.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have a very varied and diverse career. I've lived across around the world, studying in Budapest when I was from the US, and I've also worked across not just Singapore and Thailand in ASEAN, but also in Israel and in the US. So my belief is always like, carpe diem, you need to seize the day. So when there's opportunity that presents yourself and it's a venture, let's go for it, and you see what it will bring to you, right? Life is short. I think these days is more it's more obvious than ever. We really need to be open and challenge ourselves. So I'm always believe that in order to improve as a person and our development and professionally as well, we need to be constantly, I find that I need to be constantly challenging myself to get out of my comfort zone into uncomfortable territory, and that's where I will grow.
So that's a difference with you and say, the Singapore government has often said one of the key challenges of getting Singaporeans promoted to global roles is the fact that Singapore is such a comfortable place. Singaporeans don't want to get relocated.
Perhaps quite true, yeah. And in fact, many people want to relocate to Singapore, right?
Singapore, exactly.
Yes.
Now, how has all of this travel and working in different environments, especially interesting places like Israel and Thailand, shaped you as a leader, especially in terms of creating an inclusive workforce within a place like SAP? Because you're the leader, you can make a difference.
Yeah. So I think what I've learned over the many years, and this was even before I started my career, right, is living in a place from, can imagine, Singapore to Hungary, right? Yeah. It's that you have to learn to adopt to completely different cultures and learn about those cultures. So I think that has enabled me and to really try to understand the other point of view, that what the other culture is like, and be open and embrace different cultures. I think that's the beauty of ASEAN, that we have so many diverse cultures and people, and I think being inclusive is beyond also nationality or race or gender. It's also inclusivity of thought, right?
Absolutely, and people forget that groupthink is never a good thing.
Absolutely. I get worried when everybody around me is saying yes, yes, yes. I'm like, oh dear, we are too similar. Yeah. We need to be challenged. And that's something I learned in Israel. Challenging one another on a regular basis is good. It's good and it drives innovation. So that's my view, that in order to really innovate and grow the business, we need to embrace inclusivity and diversity. I'm very, very happy and very proud that I'm also the first female Singaporean president for SAP Southeast Asia.
Congratulations.
And I feel that it is my responsibility to absolutely walk the talk, right? And lead by example and show that we are truly inclusive. I have got almost 50% of the teams across Southeast Asia who are women. But I think beyond gender, we need to look at diversity of thought, bringing together teams, colleagues of different generations, different backgrounds, different experience. That's how we'll be able to grow and to drive an exciting business, for SAP moving forward.
Now, Verena, final question. Any final thoughts you would like to leave us with before we end this fascinating conversation?
Yeah. Oh, I don't believe that we are at the end of the we
could probably keep chatting away.
Yeah, we could be chatting away for the whole afternoon, Brian. Right? It's been so much fun. I think the final thought is that I want to leave behind is that SAP is fully invested here in ASEAN, in the region, right? As I mentioned before, our mission is really to help companies of all sizes transform and help them run better for the longer term, and to also contribute back to the society. And in this time, that is more relevant, even more relevant than before. We truly see the value we can bring by helping companies optimize business processes, to really look and to help them think about how they can reinvent their business in all ways, with the customers, with the employees, and also with the setting that foundation for innovation for now and for the future. So looking forward to more interesting discussions about transformation in all aspects, and also to contribute back. We didn't talk about sustainability, very, very big topic these days, Brian, but maybe for the next time.
For the next time then. Verena, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
My absolute pleasure, Brian, and have a great day ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've been speaking to Verena Siow, the President and Managing Director, SAP Southeast Asia, on Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.